What do you think then? Do we need to sort of make it more common and normal to live in social housing?
I'm of the mindset that most definitely. What we're sort of seeing at the moment is a drastic shortage of council properties and social accommodation for many vulnerable families. And that's just what we're seeing in Birmingham. Families are being crippled by private landlords. We've got people in temporary accommodation that have taken over the half of the hotel system, whole families in one room. You've got people bidding on properties, and the problem is they're not the only person bidding on properties. You can bid and not your number 257th. We definitely urgently need more social accommodation for families up and down the country.
Because, I mean, and obviously what you described, a lot of people probably don't realise that actually the government are paying for people to live in things like hotels, and hotels are being sort of commandeered by families when actually more council housing might help with that. Now, you've had experience of living in a council house. How vital was that to you and your upbringing? And obviously you're a celebrity now. I mean, do you still live in your sort of council area?
I obviously we were born and bred in Birmingham and grew up obviously, in what was then a housing association house, and it was kind of everything was fine. I had an amazing childhood, and then with regards to sort of when I had my children, my first home was a housing, a city council home, and it's sort of like back then everything was affordable. But nowadays, it's kind of. I'm still in Birmingham. I'll never leave from Birmingham. I'm only a few minutes down the road from what was, the infamous James Turner Street. It's kind of, I don't know, the price of everything and the cost of everything has risen so drastically, and people are really struggling. We've got people in private rented accommodation, and the rents are absolutely extortionate. The council properties, they are that bit cheaper, and the reality of it is, if you're in a council property, you might be able to afford to live a little bit easier.
It was a mistake then for Margaret Thatcher when she allowed people to buy their council houses in the 80s.
So sort of thinking back to that as well, it was kind of, I suppose, in a way it worked for many, and then it kind of didn't work for the others. Because again, you'd have the stigma about people being in a council property back then was it was only people on benefits, when the reality of it wasn't. So, credit if they could afford to buy their property at that time, then, good luck to them and well done. But again, you still had a lot of people who couldn't, but they were still in affordable accommodation.
What's your view on that, then, affordable housing? Because before and currently developers will build a nice development and then they'll put some affordable housing on the end of it, which sometimes doesn't work out well because there's a different culture between those who've paid, the same amount of money for a very similar property. There becomes a sort of weird sort of balance. What's your view on that? Because that's kind of what would end, and the government might end up building council houses.
See, my view is that everybody should be entitled to live in a property, no matter what their situation. And again, it's kind of like with what you've just said, why shouldn't somebody who is working class and all right, they haven't bought the property, why are they not entitled to live in an estate that's just been built? This is what's so wrong with society at the moment. They're still trying to separate the classes. And it's like, sometimes, it does work, and it works more, fingers crossed it'll work more than it doesn't.
Well, where I used to live, it had that, and there was a divide in a sense, which there was no real reason why there should be, but there was a definite divide when it came to that. The developer built some for those of us who sort of paid the full price, and they had some affordable stuff, and it didn't really work out that well. But Dee, thank you so much.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.